remember the incident.
Yes.
Right? I mean, there's video of the incident.
Sure.
First of all, I would say, does body camera in this instance seem to work to the advantage of the officers?
We have said this all along that body cameras, we're going to support the officers 99.9% of the time, because 99.9% of the time our officers are doing everything they should be doing. We're human beings, people make mistakes, and that's body cameras can cover that, and we can address those issues, and we're for that. But all along, we've expected this body cam footage to protect officers.
And when it comes to use of force, this was obviously kind of a tense situation in the moment.
Sure.
This individual had been ordered by Officer Harmon multiple times to get back, and had not. And then Officer Johnson comes in from another angle. I mean, they find that his use of force was appropriate. Some might say, well, as they did in there, argue, well, why didn't he tase him? Why didn't he mace him? Why didn't he just give him another verbal command? Why go to the punch?
Well, let's remember what they're there for in the first place. The officers were sent there, I believe, because of shots fired potentially. I know there's some claims that people were saying it's fireworks and it's going to be hard to believe. Sometimes citizens don't tell us the truth. The suspect does not come up and, yes, I was shooting a gun. So we have a right and a responsibility to go protect the citizens of that area and investigate that. Obviously, this was extremely early on by looking at the video when this happened. So for these officers to be able to determine what exactly was going on at that point, obviously, if there was a crime, they didn't have a chance to put up crime scene tape or do any of those things. They're trying to secure an area to protect the public and everyone else around there. Those are very stressful times. We're coming in with a gun. Now we have someone that's not complying clearly with the police in that situation, and there's potentially been gunshots fired. That's a red flag for anybody to know something's not right here. This isn't normal behavior to do this. Most people, they think there's gunfire. We want to go the other way. Let's get out of here. This is not it. Now we have an individual wanting to engage the police officers for whatever reason, and that makes police even more suspicious of what really is going on in this situation, and they have to determine that.
One of the things they talk about in there is the potential for, first of all, the officer's entitled to kind of engage rather than having to have to respond to an assault from the other side, right? You don't want the other guy throwing the first punch, especially in this case when Officer Johnson had a shotgun in his hand.
Let's make it clear, we don't have to wait to be shot, punched, stabbed, or anything before we respond. Yes, people often say, well, that's your job, this is part of your job, and you signed up knowing that. That doesn't mean I signed up willingly and allow it to happen. We have officers that are killed in line of duty, and we understand that's part of the job potentially to happen, but that doesn't mean we're going to allow that to happen if we have a choice. So we will absolutely always intervene to try to stop any situation from escalating even more. Who knows what can happen in those situations? Next thing you know, you're telling somebody do this, do this, do this. There's videos everywhere out there where people are ignoring verbal commands from officers. It starts to escalate, 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 and next thing you know, someone's pulled out a gun, the suspect's pulled out a gun, and now we have multiple people shot. Just saw a video the other day where a fireman was killed out of a medical run. It wasn't even a shots fired call, and a fireman ended up getting killed out of that incident in another city. And officers were shot and engaged with the suspect because they didn't take control of the situation before it got even more out of control. And that's part of our job too. And it's really simple. If the police tell you, please stay back, don't do that. To comply, and these things don't happen. This is not rocket science when it comes to dealing with these situations. If you comply with the police, certainly in a potentially dangerous situation for everyone there, not just the police, based on the call, these things don't happen.
He even acknowledged that after the fact, that the guy who got punched, that it wouldn't have happened if he just followed commands. But he also argues that you've got to understand my mindset. My mindset was my wife and my children, and I saw an officer with a gun out. I was protecting my family.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that was the people in the video that started to walk into potentially the house in question at the time, but they had turned and walked away. They were if you're truly scared of their interaction with the police, I believe they had walked away at that point. So that, that scary moment for you, quote unquote, would have been over. And I understand you appear to be in the video upset because the police stopped them from going into the house, is what it appears to me. In my looks in the videos, and we have a responsibility to protect and preserve potential crime scenes and to do all that. We can have those discussions, but people in the community need to understand that there are certain behaviors that are acceptable and that are not. Certainly at crime scenes, potentially very dangerous situations, we cannot allow leniency on what's acceptable behavior because that's how things escalate and get out of control. And if you simply comply with us when we tell you those things go much smoother. Then we can have a nice conversation and explain to you what we're doing and why people can't go in a house. There was no opportunity to do that in this case, unfortunately.
It's good.